Welcome to Paycheck Thoughts 2003 film. If you don't care about these disclaimers, I try to keep them short and relevant, but your mileage may vary. You can skip right ahead to the section of your choice via the description box. I try to talk fast during the disclaimers since a lot of it is very standard information. I'm not going to keep speaking as fast once I get into the video itself. Now, this video contains spoilers for the movie, the short story, and I'm probably going to spoil at least some of the Bourne Identity, the Matt Damon version, and Total Recall, the original, and possibly the short story that is based on. And I might talk about some of the other work of John Woo, but I'm not sure, and Philip K. Dick, who wrote the short story that this is based on, but I'm going to try not to spoil their other work, or at least I'm going to try to warn before I do so. And, like, you know, hold up a finger while I'm doing it so you can mute and skip ahead. And I think that pretty well covers, so yeah, right. I'm just briefly going to say that the other Philip K. Dick adaptations that I've seen are Next, A Scanner Darkly, Minority Report, and, let's see, Adjustment Bureau. And I very recently rewatched Next, A Scanner Darkly, and Total Recall. I think those are the only yeah. Now, let's see. I probably won't swear in this video since there really isn't very much swearing in the movie itself. Now, let's see. The following is a short list supplied by the IMDb More Like This list of movies that are similar to this, and honestly it seems like, let's see, yeah, basically, you know, some of it is like Philip K. Dick adaptations, some of it is Ben Affleck movies, and some of it is John Woo movies. So that's actually fairly decent. A lot of these, you know, more like this list, at least that I've seen recently, it's like, here's something else with this lead actor, and it's like, yeah, but that movie is nothing like this one. But here, it's actually a pretty decent combination. Let's see, so you've got Broken Arrow, I forget, I think I gave that movie a 6. Sum of All Fears, which I give, sorry, 6 out of 10. Sum of All Fears, which I rated a 7 out of 10. Wind Talkers, which I don't think I've seen. Next, which I gave a 7 out of 10. And Reindeer Games, which I gave a 6 out of 10. And let's see. I'll record this video as soon as I can get to the computer after watching the movie. This is not a review, this is a series of, well, thoughts. Some of it is analysis, some of it is MST3 Harriet riff tracks and other jokes. And I think most of the jokes are probably going to be in the first section. So the first section is thoughts that I had while watching in chronological order. The second section is thoughts that I had before watching, including my responses to various YouTube videos, including trailers, analysis, and such, DVD extras, the editing room, abridged script, Outlaw Vern's review, stuff like that. And let's see, the time codes for all these sections will be in the description box. And then the final section, I get into stuff I think it is worthwhile to get into on Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic, IMDb and Wikipedia. Before recording this vlog, I had read all but the IMDb user reviews. And I've forgotten at least some of what I read, since I prepare for these weeks ahead, sometimes a month or more. If you're not interested in the contents of all 3 sections, I invite you to only watch the ones you are interested in. And I might do a review of the movie at some point, but I'm not currently... It probably won't be soon. I try not to review films, games, or TV shows that fall into genres that I don't like. I realize an argument can be made in favor of talking about genres that you don't like, but it's not really what I want to do with these videos. I don't particularly like the idea of giving a negative review to something wherein basically I say, this movie is not the kind of thing that I would ever like, and because of that, it is a bad movie. That's not the kind of reviews I want to do. So I'm going to be criticizing aspects of this movie, but I do want you to know going in, honestly, I don't hate this movie. I like a lot about, I love some of it and like a lot about it. Ultimately, yeah, I'll get more into the specifics. Anyway, this is the kind of movie that I really should love. I love John Woo. I usually like Ben Affleck in movies, though with action movies maybe less so, especially back when this was made. I liked him fine as Batman, and I think I liked him in The Town, but it's been a long time since I watched that movie, and I only watched it once, when it came out. Anyway, and I love Philip K. Dick, so yeah, when I criticize this movie, it's not because this is not the kind of thing I like anyway. Now, let's see. I got this movie, let me think, I think on sale. So anything negative I say in this video is not out of bitterness. I also do not feel like the movie wasted my time. Nobody forced me to watch it or to make this video. It's not that I'm upset at how this compares to what it's adapting, other movies like it, or other work by the people who made it. I don't have some personal vendetta against anyone who worked on making it. To the best of my ability, the negative things I say in this are fair criticisms based on budget, when it came out, what it was trying to achieve, etc. Now, I watched some YouTube videos and special features on IMDb before doing this video, and I first watched this in the year 2011, and haven't watched it since before now, today watching it right before now, vlogging about it. Now, my making jokes in this should not necessarily be taken as me thinking the thing I'm joking about is actually bad, me wanting to make light of the subject, etc. I simply find it very difficult not to MST3K and overanalyze everything I watch and play. So, let's see. I guess ultimately, yeah. So, my own quote-unquote film critic rating for this is 7 conspicuous items that will later come into play because I looked through. They never do give it a name, do they? The thingamajig, and saw my future and realized they would come in handy, out of 10. And my personal rating is also 7 out of 10. Now, that brings us to the first section, which is called Notes Taken While Watching. Okay. I quite like the misdirect in the opening. This is a John Woo movie, so even a person walking through a door is made epic. I do appreciate this doesn't go as nuts as some of his other movies do with the stylization. I love the stylistic. It's, Face Off is one of my favorite movies of all time, but sometimes he does get a bit, go overboard. I think that some of the stuff in Mission Impossible 2, for example, really is just, yeah. Anyway, seeing Jennings work with the hologram and change the technology is a great window into how he thinks, which is obviously very important for how he deals with problems once things start going wrong. I appreciate that they don't waste any time. As soon as we've seen what he does, we see the memory erasing, and what leads into it is the mysterious line, although, you know, if you know the concept, maybe not as mysterious, you won't remember me, will you? I appreciate that the memory erasing already looks like it's unpleasant to Jennings, and you know, you see you see it represented on the monitor. You know, basically the idea is supposed to be that they're like scanning inside his brain, and they can find the individual memories, and it looks like this like destructive thing. You know, it doesn't look like this subtle natural thing. It legitimately, like, from right away, the movie makes us feel like this is fundamentally wrong. You should not remove your memories, you know. Obviously, the movie doesn't convey it anywhere near as well as Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, but, you know, yeah, that I don't think it's not every movie has to be as incredible as that is. Let's see. And you know, Mike and Jimmy are in the room, and I think Mike is the one who smokes, but I forget right now. And you know, Jimmy's like, oh, hold on a second. Disable fire protection. Commit scene to audience's memory. Now you can smoke. I appreciate that. You know, Mike really does wonder if 3 years isn't too much to lose for the job. And we see the actual personal items Mike gives over, and we're told he'll get them back when he gets the paycheck. So now we have an easier time recognizing that, you know, when he gets the personal belongings back, this is stuff he did not actually bring there. You know, making sure the audience remembers that this is realizes that there's something going on here. And I appreciate that, like, in the short story, which I'm just blanket gonna say pretty much every time I compare the two. Overall, I like the short story better, but I'm not saying that adapting it directly would make for as compelling of a movie. You know, and I think they did a good job of adding in more stuff, because if you literally just adapted the short story, I don't know, maybe half an hour of material is what's in there, you know. And you know, and whenever you do that kind of thing, you have to be careful that it's not just filler. And I'd say they did a pretty good job. Most of the stuff they added is character development, it's action scenes that, you know, come organically out of the story. You know, I would say they did. It's a pretty good adaptation, and honestly, mostly, you know, usually when Philip K. Dick stories are adapted for movies, they tend to change a lot, you know. And this, like, as a quick example, this is a far better adaptation than Next is of The Golden Man. You know, this does get the gist of the story with a few, I guess, yeah. I mean, I already said I'm spoiling the short story. In the short story, part of it is commenting on how corporations are actually treated better than people, which is, like, it's very impressive that he realized that way back when he wrote this story. Crap, I'm sorry, I forget exactly when it was he wrote it, but even back then he could tell, you know, because today they certainly are. You know, it's gotten a lot worse since he wrote that short story, and the short story is also set in a totalitarian government, and actually the only way that he ends up getting protection is by excuse me excuse me is by getting in, you know, becoming, what's it called, he ends up owning some of the company, and because of that he gets protection through the company. The company will protect him from the where in the movie the FBI is also after him, but they're gonna pretend that he's. Wait, I mean, he didn't change his identity, so how exactly? I guess the ending is just that they're gonna let. I mean, a couple of the FBI agents pretend that he's not there, but that other FBI guy still wants to get his hands on him. It's not like, yeah, I'm not entirely sure they completely thought that through. Anyway, the I totally get why they didn't want to do the totalitarian government thing, and it's not as though, you know, there are several other Philip K. Dick stories where they do have a totalitarian government, and I guess I'm gonna go ahead and leave that hanging instead of saying exactly which ones I'm referring to, since it could be considered spoilers. But yeah, now the thing that I wanted to right, what I wanted to get to was, in the short story, the idea is that you get to choose if you want your paycheck or a an I'm not sure it's an envelope. I think it might be a bag or something in the book, but a container of items that you very specifically chose. If you find that that's simply something you would rather have than the money. And at first he doesn't know why he would give up the money for these seemingly useless items, but in you know yeah, it turns out that it's because he saw the future. In the movie, that would not have worked. There's no way. You're not gonna convince the audience that he would willingly give up, what was it, $90 million for this. And again, part of it is that in the short story he realizes the reason I gave up the money is it doesn't matter how much money I have when the government is totalitarian and are out to get me. I can't get protection just by having money. If he's not part of a corporate, if there isn't a corporation protecting him, they're just going to take, and I mean, I'm not sure. It's today, maybe that wouldn't be the case, but it is worth noting, you know, ah, I forget, I don't remember right now if the Nazis did it, but I'm almost certain that, in the Soviet Union, if you had money, or if you had, like, a shop that the government wanted, they didn't have to, they could just take it from you. You didn't have power just because of that. And yeah, so let's see, I guess. And, because it's an American movie, the ending has him winning the lottery and getting roughly as much money as, like, okay, it's not exactly the same, but it's so little. When you have about $90 million, what was it off by? What was it, 3,000, or was it 3 million? Whatever. At that point, that's essentially pocket change. Yeah, there's actually an alternate ending on the DVD where instead of a lot of money, it's the engagement ring, and I don't think we do see him propose, but clearly he is going to propose to her. And, I'm okay. To be fair, that's not much less Hollywood, but it is at least there's some difference in the but yeah, it is this thing of, it's not enough to save the world. He, of course, he ends up with the money as well. He just gets the money in a different way than he expected to at first. Yeah, and Colm Fiore, I'm sorry, I did not catch his character's name, so I'm I guess I'm gonna refer to him by either that or other characters I've seen him play. he explains, to Ben Affleck, I'm gonna put an isotope in your body. I don't know. Apparently, Ben Affleck did not like playing Daredevil, and I mean, in the movie they bump it up a bit, but in the comics, it's radioactive isotope went into his eyes. It's too bad that Ben Affleck and Uma Thurman have no chemistry together. I feel like both actors are trying, and independently of each other, they are charming and attractive. They're just not convincing together. Let's see. I like that in this, you know, yeah, in this as an adaptation of the short story, they do really offer Michael stocks, and in the short story, he specifically asks for stocks near the end of the story, and they don't really want to give it to him. So this is sort of amusing subversion of that. Ultimately in the short story, he does end up, like owning part of the company, but in this, he just wants the money. And again, that's, so the reason he wants the company in the short story is for protection. So there's no reason to put it in the movie. And yeah, it's a cute little wink and nod to people who actually read the short story before watching the movie. That yeah, we read the short story too, and the just yeah. And it's the kind of thing where, like, if you watch it and you haven't read the short story, you don't really think twice about it. It's like, of course they're gonna offer it. What he's making for them, like, before you know what he's making for them, it tells you what he's making for them is huge. It's something that they know he's going to want these stocks. And let me think. See, and they know that the stocks will be worth a lot of money. And then, you know, once you realize what it is, once you realize that they can, you know what, I'm gonna call it the real crystal ball, because that's, he's like, oh, how can you know the future? What is this like? Is this crystal ball real? Because I never said the movie was very subtle. There's a lot of foreshadowing, like yeah. There's yeah the so the let's see, yeah, right. So once you realize that what he made was the real crystal ball, you're like, oh wow, yeah, I can completely see why that would be extremely profitable as a. I mean, we never do find out exactly how they made that money, but if you can see the future, there's a lot of stuff that you can, you can use that. I mean, they do use, sorry, Michael himself does use it to win $90 million. So, there are a lot of things. If you can see the future, there are a lot of things that you can, like, what's the word? There are a lot of ways you can use that to make a lot of money. And Jennings freaks out about losing 92 million. Sorry, yeah, that's what it was. $92 million, and he highlights some of the items which help that helps that helps the audience remember some of the specific items. He puts on the glasses and say, "What are these back in style?" And is this is this hairspray, and it is, like, I mean, if he was, when later when he's in the tunnel, you know if he was running around with a lot of money, that's not going to stop that guy from shooting him, but a lighter and hairspray is. Now, I think the movie does. Once you realize that he's going to be using these items for very specific purposes, and that he's, I saw at least one reviewer call it MacGyver. Doesn't MacGyver usually, you know what, I haven't watched the show, so I'm gonna assume that makes sense, and just use that. Once you start seeing him MacGyvering out of situations, you start to try to guess what are the various, what are some of the other things going to be used for. I had a lot of fun doing that on the first viewing. I didn't do it as much this viewing. Decent fight at Mike's place, and the FBI agents explain to Mike just how bad of a situation he's in, and that again, that actually is very, it is a lot like in the short story. There, it's just that it's a totalitarian government, where here, they're saying it's treason, which, excuse me, there we go. So Mike gets free because they forget to turn off the fire detection thing. That is kind of silly. When they indicated that, like, the camera makes, really underlines that clearly the cigarettes are important. He's like, he won't mind if we smoke some of the, that's not exactly what he says, but in case you forget exactly what's being conveyed with the cinematic language, he won't mind. And one of them gets a cigarette. I was like, oh, so it's like, it's one of those, like, they have like joke cigars that like blow up and cover your face in black stuff. Maybe it's a version of that, and it's like a flashbang or something. But no, it's just that it sets off the fire alarm, and that's it. At least they do make it clear that he wouldn't have been able to get out of there before they stopped him, if not for the shades. So, and at the transit station, Mike looks around, realizes there are guards everywhere, but he only realizes about the swipe card because someone knocks the envelope out of his hands, and it falls on the floor. I do kind of wish that, like, if you just had like a shot, a close-up of Ben Affleck's face, and he's like, pensive, and he sticks his hand in the envelope, pulls it back out, and he's got the swipe card. Like he remembered there was a swipe card in there. And once he's on the bus, Mike actually starts looking at the stuff in the envelope, and the kid swipes the engagement ring. But as Mike chases him off, he leaves the bus to get the, that takes him to the building that he should go to. So Colm Fiore reports to Aaron Eckhart. I can't help but think how wild it is to see Two-Face bossing around Ralphie. Jimmy tries activating the machine for looking through time and gets an error message. I wonder if he's going to try switching off and back on again. So Mike called some number only to realize that the bank doesn't even exist. Like, he didn't call the bank and find out that it's been closed somehow. He called up and asked for a bank. I don't know. I guess it's the phone version of Googling. Did he call the operator? How old is this script anyway? Let's see. I guess they didn't want a scene of him like looking through a phone book. Isn't that what you usually do to find out the number of a bank that, I don't know. It's been a while since I looked up a phone number that I didn't already. Yeah. I told you not to take that job. Well, that's all I came here to say. Good luck. It is pretty cool when Mike realizes the machine is foreseeing the future, and it's very American that the way he realizes is by seeing that he has the winning lottery numbers. I will say, when you see that, you don't immediately realize that the movie's going to end with him also having the actual ticket. You think that the reason he has the numbers is so that he could, is to communicate to himself that he has, you know, the ah, that he could see the future. Let's see. When the programmer said that he can find the virus, I thought he was going to add that it would take like 50 years or something, but obviously then Jimmy couldn't send men to kill Mike, and they want for that to be, part of the story, so. Oh god, I hope that was a good thing to do. Fun fact, they wrote that into the script when they found out that that was what the actor actually said right after agreeing to be in the movie. And yeah, he makes the makeshift flamethrower. And Fiore shoots the guy since Mike has his gun anyway, and we get the detail that the tracks are really electrified. I think it does basically make sense, Mike using the gun clip on the electrified tracks as a sort of grenade, almost like, what's it called, the kind with ball bearings inside. Claymore mine, or do those, or is it modified Claymore mine? I forget. I love how ridiculous the explanation for how it sees the future is. They literally say that it sees around the curvature of the universe, seeing where, looking back at yourself, but it's not you in the present, it's you in the future. That's incredible, and I do appreciate that they do. In the short story, there's a detail that really would not work in the movie. You see, in the short story, not only can he see into the future, he can also, take things, from the future and put them in the possession of present day, And the short story actually ends with, I forget, I think it's like that Mike has, yeah, he has like a document that would give him leverage over the company, but the young woman that he trusted has taken it, and then like there's like I forget exactly how they describe it, but I like the image, so I'm gonna go with, it's like when you're at like a bowling alley or arcade or something, and has that arm, the grabby arm, you put in money, and you can, try to pick up a thing. That thing comes in from, like a black, not an actual black, like a hole appears in like the ceiling, and then down comes this grabby claw, takes it out of the hand of the one. I forget if it puts it in the hand of the other one, or if it just magically appears in the container of items. But anyway, I really don't think that would have worked in this movie. That would have been ridiculous. But his stories were really very far out there, and I absolutely love that about. Once again, let's see, what was it that I talked about where this came up? I feel like it's been a while since I last did a video on a specific Philip K. Dick. And anyway, in the short story that the Adjustment Bureau is based on, which I also think they did a good job adapting, considering that the original is like 2 pages or something. The original short story, which I think it's called the Adjustment Team, not the Adjustment Bureau, has a talking dog. And it's part of the Adjustment Team. I don't think that would have worked quite as well. It's really cruel of Jimmy to lie to Rachel to get information about the technology. And I really like that, let's see, what was it that she sprayed on the, or was it the heat from the, no, yeah, right, Fiore sprays. I guess it was the, what's it called? The hot water shower, the steam, I guess, that showed the message on the mirror. So Jimmy has a camera that Rachel doesn't know about that's really close to her shower. That's really messed up, and something the movie really doesn't go into, like, just some kind of, I don't know, I guess, yeah, like near the end, maybe she gets to punch him in the face for, I don't know, somehow she found out about the spy camera, and she, she punches him in the face and say, "Don't ever spy on, you know, don't don't ever spy on a woman again." Something like that. I mean, it wouldn't have been impossible to just like have it be slightly differently. I don't know. Is it for? Eh, never mind. Here's what I want you to do: go back into the bathroom, stare down the crapper. Now you're gonna see your career down there. I guess Jimmy doesn't know that Mike had met Rachel before the memory erasing, since really he should be able to tell that what Maya is doubling as her. That's not actually Rachel. I mean, they do look somewhat alike, and the sunglasses do help. And I guess if he's got a lot of people working at the company, it makes reasonable sense that they could fairly quickly find someone who looks a lot like her. I don't know. Anyway, his memories were only erased from the, as far as I understand, memories were only erased to when he started working there, right? Not to before that, because then he wouldn't. Yeah, because then he'd be sitting there like, "Who are you?" Not sorry, not who are you, but what are you talking about? He already knew Jimmy, but he got the job offer not long after meeting her, so that really doesn't make, yeah. And the, let's see, there was another thing that I was, yeah, because to Mike, that would be like yesterday. Like for you or I, it can be difficult to remember something that happened more than 3 years ago. But if all his memories are erased, to him it's like there wasn't any, so yeah. The camera carefully lets us know that she can hear everything Jimmy says through. I guess it's the earring that is also a microphone. Now the IMDb goofs point out what's wrong with the thing with like how she doesn't know the what's his favorite baseball team. Maybe I'll go over it when I get to that section. But yeah. I get that the movie and the future needed Mike to make a turn instead of continuing to drive forward on the motorcycle. But why would those two cars, like, they're basically bouncing up against, like, this is how the cars would normally go. And they're, like, rubbing against each other. Like, wouldn't both drivers want to drive at least a little further away so they don't damage the outside of the car? Like, and some pretty cool physics-defying car stuff at the construction yard. And at the end of the whole, that whole bit, Rachel is like, got it. I really want there to be like a blooper reel where just for one take, just for fun, she was like, I didn't get it. We're gonna have to go back there. And Rachel throws the helmet at the driver's head, so the knocked out. Oh, fine. My tongue suddenly decided to commit treason. Yeah, that'll do. I realize that us seeing Michael's death predicted is for the audience's benefit, but like it's not like someone is remembering it or seeing it right there. Like, I guess it's so that we better understand the conversation between Rachel and Mike. Besides, some of the best things in life are total mistakes. I don't know that I would say that this movie is one of the best things in life. See, I'm joking. I'm not saying the movie is actually a total mistake. I just, that is what we call opening the door. Whatever future it predicts, we make happen. Very clever, very realistic idea of how it would really work if you could see the future. And honestly, that's not exactly, and that exact thing is not in the short story, but it is something, Philip K. Dick did not live to see this movie, but I think he would. I think that he would have liked the that's something that they put in an adaptation of his. I don't know if he would have liked the movie overall, but he, yeah, he did like time travel stuff and time prediction stuff. Put some bodies on that campus, and send some people too, alive ones. Let's take a look at the future before we destroy this thing. I'm not saying it's an actual mistake of the movie, but it is slightly funny that maybe 5 minutes after saying that it would be horrible to see the future, they literally say, let's look at the future. For most of the... Let's see. For most of her time in the movie, Rachel helped Mike a lot. But then here near the future, she keeps wanting to smash things with the wrench. Obviously they're trying to make sure the audience remembers the wrench. It'll come in handy. It is a slightly awkward element in the script. I feel like they could have made it something that didn't make her look like, yeah, like it just, like she comes off as suddenly not really understanding how delicately some of this stuff works. A bullet in the liquid nitrogen, I guess that more or less makes sense. The fighting in the lab isn't bad. And Rachel uses the controls to get the submachine gun into Mike's hands. I guess we're just not really supposed to think about how a reverse engineer is so good with guns. I don't necessarily have a problem with him being good at martial arts. He might have taken lessons. But he doesn't own a gun, so why would he have training to use one? There's no real indication that he's ex-military or something. And I mean, obviously part of it is that they wanted for him to not know, like, if he normally used guns, we would have an expectation, like, part of it is that this is happening to a regular guy, but then he's using guns, like, yeah, it's just, it's not quite as, hard to believe as District 9 is, but still. And more bow staff stuff. Ben Affleck does look a little awkward using it. Jimmy, you want to kill me? Come do it yourself. Ominous thunder and lightning, so that's why that machine is there. And Jimmy wants to kill Mike, so he does this. I mean, he's not even really trying to hang him. I guess he just wants it to be uncomfortable because he's really just lifting him. Because he lets him down. At first I thought he was going to try to hang him to death. Yeah, right. He doesn't use the gun down on the floor because he's seen that he's supposed to shoot him with the, yeah, with the other gun up on the catwalk. And the door opens and Mike sees a bird fly out of there, a dove. Does that mean the door just flipped in the bird? And I legitimately, like, I guess he imagined that. I mean, it's the only time that there's something like that. It's not like he's got some kind of psychic thing for the rest of the story, even though that would also fit right in a Philip K. Dick story. And Mike and Rachel duck out of the way of the bullet, so instead Jimmy dies, and let's see. I feel like it would have been a little more convincing if they ducked quicker, or it seemed like, because the way it looks in the movie, it kind of looks as though either they're moving extremely fast or the bullet is moving extremely slow and it's just, I don't know, regardless, it would have been difficult to completely make it work. And Colm Feore sees himself on the machine dying right before it actually happens. I mean, they can't be surprised at how big a fireball explosion happened when the machine was destroyed. They were warned not to store nitroglycerin in there. And they realized the winning lottery ticket was at the bottom of the bird cage. You know, it does make decent sense that, you know, he decided not to put that in the envelope, considering that, you know, if someone handling the envelope realized this is a winning lottery ticket, you know, it's not going to stay in there. Now, let's see. Right, so yeah, the movie is an hour and 50 minutes long without end credits, and 54 minutes with them. And I think, yeah, I'm just briefly gonna, so like I said, I'm spoiling the Total Recall from 1990. Others have compared this to that. You know, when this first came out, the critics compared this to that, and you can definitely see a resemblance. And like, there's I guess you might say, overall, the in some ways the two movies are more similar than the short stories are. Let's see. But yeah, you know, they have, you know, both of them fairly early. The main character has his memories messed with. Then he ends up with a bunch of with gadgets that, you know, come in extremely handy, that were clearly provided by someone who knew, excuse me, the kind of stuff that he would need. Yeah, see, I don't think that's in the short story of Total Recall. Anyway, the so let's see, which I'm not even entirely sure, is the short story even particularly action based? Like, it's more like, yeah, I'm not sure. It's been years since I read the short story for Total Recall, but if I recall, that is not an action story, and I'm really glad they made it into one, because it lends itself to one extremely well. You know, people wouldn't still be talking about Total Recall if they just adapted, literally, if what was on the page was what was on the screen. You know, there you have the clever concept, but, you know, the action scenes are a huge part of what people love, what we all love about Total Recall. So the, you know, but yeah. Actually, yeah, let me think. Paycheck, the short story, was definitely out before Total Recall the movie came out, because the movie was made after, you know, after Philip K. Dick's death. I think the person writing the adaptation had read the Paycheck short story and was like, that's a cool element, I'm gonna put that in Total Recall. Excuse me. Excuse me. Excuse me. There we go. And yeah, so, you know, the let's see. So he meets a, you know, he meets back up with a young woman who remembers him, and she realizes that he doesn't remember her. Let's see, and, you know, it culminates in him fighting his former boss, and, let's see, in like a lab set, you know, like, you know, in a sci-fi, you know, setting, somewhat sci-fi setting, and the very end, like, sort of brings, you know, it's the ending isn't random. It pays off on something, you know, and I mean, obviously the ending here is nowhere near like the ending of Total Recall the movie is just like mind blown, like incredible, like. And I do honestly love that you can completely, like, I can imagine there are probably people who watch that movie and who do believe that everything that happens in the movie happens for real. You know, that it's not, you know, I would say the as far as I understand, basically the idea is when, you know, that doctor who shows up with his wife on Mars, he's for real. You know, the sweat thing, that's just like, you know, I mean that's, I don't think the sweat disproves the theory, and certainly something that really, you know, makes the theory work well is that literally everything the doctor says does come true. He's like, you know, you'll be saving the you know, all of Mars, and you know, you're a hero, you're bosom buddies with the bad guy, all this stuff, and you know, the let's see, and then you have the, yeah, you know, basically everything that happens in the movie Total Recall, from when when they put Arnie under and up to the end, is all in his mind, you know, and he's getting a lobotomy. That's why it fades to white there at the end, instead of just, you know, and they even, you know, he says, I just had a terrible thought. What if this is all, you know, in my head, or this is all imagined? Then kiss me before it ends, you know, and then lobotomy, and the movie ends, you know. That's a really clever end. That's an extremely clever ending, and that's not the exact ending from the short story. I'm gonna go ahead and spoil the short story as well. So yeah, I'm gonna hold up this finger as long as I'm talking about the ending of the short story, Total Recall. So when you see me lower this finger, it's safe to listen again. So skip ahead and mute if you don't want. Anyway, in the short story, he doesn't want to. He just really wants to be, like, important. He wants to, you know, the let me think. There's something about, like, he, crap. I don't remember all the details, but it's something about that he wants, he feels like he doesn't matter, and he wants to matter. And it turns out that when he was a child, he met aliens, and that actually led to, like, a peace agreement between planets, but they couldn't have him remember, so they erased his memory of that. And for the rest of his life, he's felt like he should matter, but he doesn't. And then there at the end, he, you know, yeah, it becomes clear, no, he really did meet aliens as a kid, you know. So it doesn't have him sitting in a chair getting a lobotomy. And again, I really don't think the short story ending would have worked as well for the movie. No more spoilers for the short story, unless I warn again for the short story of Total Recall. That brings us to the second section, notes taken before watching. So I opened this section mentioning what else I've seen of the work of the starring actors, based on the very top ones listed on Wikipedia, starring section, not cast, and the crew, director, writer, and producers, again based on the Wikipedia listing. It's that section under the poster. And, you know, so you know what basis for comparison I have for them, and I'll sometimes bring up similarities, excuse me, where I maybe think the cast and crew did better or worse. And I may also mention other famous work by them if it's relevant. So, yeah, just as a quick, and before you jump on me, I know I should watch all of John Woo's filmography. I will. But the ones I have watched are Red Cliff, this, Mission Impossible 2, Face Off, Broken Arrow, Once a Thief, and Bullet in the Head. And ultimately, I don't think the producer credits are that important. So, you know, yeah. Philip K. Dick, I've read all of his that I could get my hands on. You know, it's a long list. I'm not going to mention all of them, but just real brief. I read the novels Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, Flo My Tears the Policeman Said, and To Scanner Darkly. I recommend all three. And so Imposter, which I know there's a movie based on that. I doubt it'll be quite as good, but hopefully. Oh, okay. It looks like Paycheck was written in 1953. Yeah. And Second Variety, which I also... Wasn't that turned into a movie as well? Or am I thinking of something else? But that I definitely recommend that one. I can't say what it's like without spoiling it, but it's great. It's really really good. And let's see, the father thing, which is also great. Let's see. I guess that is more or less Minority Report. That might be all I'm going to... Right, and the Total Recall, the short story that was adapted into Total Recall, which I I kind of love this title, and I'm really glad that they didn't use it for the movie because nobody would. The short story is named "We Can Remember It for You Wholesale." There's no way that would have worked as the movie, and the title Total Recall does make, because it's like, oh yeah, Total Recall, yeah, he can remember everything, and it also sounds kind of cool. And let's see. Right, and I've actually, yeah, the only adaptations of his that I haven't watched yet are Radio Free, Albemuth, Natural City, Imposter Screamers, which is based on Second Variety, there we go, Barjo, and Morning Patrol. I probably will eventually watch Screamers and Imposter. I don't... I think the other ones are a little more obscure, and maybe... yeah. Anyway. So, Ben Affleck, I've... yeah, I've seen him as Batman, so I don't need to mention all those separately. Argo, The Town, State of Play, Jiggly, Daredevil, Sum of All Fears, James and Bob Strike Back, Pearl Harbor, Reindeer Games, Dogma, Tom Cigarettes, Shakespeare in Love, Armageddon, Phantoms, and Good Will Hunting. He was the bomb in Phantoms. And Aaron Eckhart, I've seen in Battle Los Angeles, Dark Knight, Black Dahlia, Thank You for Smoking, The Core, The Pledge, and Aaron Brockovich. And Uma Thurman, I've seen in the Kill Bill movies, Gattaca, Batman Rock, sorry, Beautiful Girls, Pulp Fiction, and The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. And Paul Giamatti. I always love seeing Paul Giamatti as the comic relief, but he's great in dramatic roles as well. But yeah, I've seen him in Donnie Brasco, Private Parts, Truman Show, Saving Private Ryan, Negotiator, Man on the Moon, Storytelling, Duplicity, and The Amazing Spider-Man 2. And Kung Fury I've seen in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Thor, National Security, The Sum of All Fears, Pearl Harbor, and Face Off. So yeah, this actually, The Sum of All Fears has two of the actors from this, and Face Off has both the director and an actor. And Joe Morton in his, DCEU roles, I've seen him in American Gangster, Stealth, Blues Brothers 2000, Speed 2, Speed, Forever Young, Of Mice and Men, and obviously Terminator 2, Judgment Day. And Michael C. Hall, other than this, all I've seen him in is Gamer and Dexter. I'd like to see him in more. I love him on Dexter, and I think he did, he's fine in this. It's a small role, so it's, but but he is, let me think. I think I like him pretty well in Gamer. So, let's see. Now, so yeah, personally, I do still love the 2003 Daredevil movie. I watched it just yesterday to compare, and because I don't really need much of an excuse to rewatch that. But I will admit that when, you know, yeah, when these two movies were made, Ben Affleck was not the most convincing action movie lead. He makes a pretty good Batman, but that came a lot later. Honestly, I wasn't that bothered by it this time. I don't know, maybe it's just I've seen Daredevil so many times, I'm just not bothered by anymore. Like, I'm having a hard time remembering why it is people say that he doesn't make a good act or didn't make a good action lead back then. I don't know. I honestly I meant to like point to things, excuse me, but I've completely forgotten. Anyway, so much of the fun of both the short story and the film is finding out where these seemingly random, not to mention useless, objects will come in handy, and realizing that the protagonist actually did see all of this coming. I love that in the short story. I feel like they did quite a good job of it in the movie, which is far from always the case in Hollywood movies. I will say that the idea makes a lot more sense in the book, where the protagonist is a regular person, rather than in a movie where incredible feats can happen, such as a John Woo movie. But it is still, and I don't know. I mean, I guess I saw at least one critic say, movies, they really hate it once the movie had him MacGyvering, and I was just like, that's, I mean, without that, it's just I really don't think it's that interesting if it's just, he knows something about. I mean, apparently Matt Damon turned down the role because it was way too similar to The Bourne Identity, and I'm like, I mean, if he doesn't actually, I guess technically the objects that come in handy, that movie does kind of have that as well. It's just not specific to the exact situation. It's more that this is stuff that would come in handy for missions in general. But yeah, let's see, let me think. But yeah, without the let's go with precognition element, where he literally has items that will come in extremely handy. I don't think it's that interesting. I really feel like that's the part of the concept that really makes it incredible. Now, let's see. So the and overall, like, yeah, it's almost too bad that, like, at the end of the day, some of the stuff in the short story is just so deliciously obscure, and yet when it happens, it's like, oh, that makes perfect sense. And then in the movie, ultimately, like, it is just that there are situations where, like, at the end of the day, the makeshift flamethrower, everybody knows that you can make a makeshift flamethrower out of that. As a quick example, sorry, what I'm saying is that these are things, I like the stamp. The stamp makes a lot of sense because it is that sort of thing of, like, at the end of the day, who's going to look there, and that's a good way for him to hide all this information. But in the short story, like, one of my favorites is that when he opens the envelope or whatever it is, one of the things is half a poker chip, and, like, he specifically, he's like, a poker chip is already way less interesting than a paycheck, but half of one is useless, and thankfully he doesn't throw it away. And then, near the end of the story, he's looking for a place to hide, and there's this gambling place, and there are, like, I think government agents, close by, and he has to get to some place that's safe. And he's like, poker chip. So he walks up, he walks up, and there's a guard right outside the gambling establishment. He's like, please don't make me throw you out, because clearly you do not belong here. And he reaches in and he hands him the half poker chip, And the guy, like, pauses for a sec because he's like, he does not look like a gambler. He does not belong here. And he's like, fair enough, this is my job. So he grabs the poker chip, and he yanks out. He's got like a necklace thing, and he's got and it was hidden by his coat, so no one would even realize. He pulls that out, and he's got like half a poker chip hidden on him, and he combines the two. Yep, they fit. So fair enough, you belong here. Here's your half a poker chip back. And he walks in there, and the government agents are like, I mean, we're not gonna, they can't just, so he gets some safety there, and at the moment you realize it, it's like, of course, but you didn't guess it before it happened. That's such a great, like, that's, because you can totally believe that they would have that sort of code thing, because it's not difficult to mass produce half poker chips, and if you don't have one, you don't get passed, and if you find one in someone else's stuff, you're not going to realize what it's for, so it's such a clever, yeah. So let's see. Yeah, so I watched the trailers. They're pretty good. One is 2 minutes and 29 seconds. Another is 2 minutes and 27 seconds. I think there were two separate ones. And then there was also one that was 2 minutes and 6 seconds, but it's dubbed into, I think, Spanish, so I couldn't watch it. I'm bilingual, not multilingual. Is that what? See, I don't even know what the word is. And let's see. Yeah, I didn't make a lot of notes, but I listened to the DVD comes with two commentary tracks, one by John Woo, one by screenwriter Dean Jorgaris. I'm gonna guess is how you pronounce it. John Woo said he didn't want it to be as sci-fi as the script was, and he talks about how he doesn't like rehearsal. That was the notes I made from that, and the screenwriter, Dean, says that they wanted the first 5 minutes to show what Ben does, and let's see, and in the, when he has the gun in the tunnel, he's bluffing. It's empty, but that was cut. And in the hotel room, originally, Uma was written to spend 2 minutes complaining that he betrayed her, and he was worried it might have lost the audience's affection for Uma, and if I recall, he also said that he talked to maybe his girlfriend or wife or something, and she explained to him, if a woman has been seeing the same guy for 3 years and she hears that he doesn't have his memory anymore, she's not going to be mad at him, she's going to try to help him. And yeah, and Dean points out the future seeing tech can be used for good or ill, like nuclear energy. Huh. Okay, he says that Ben is a lousy shot near the future seer because he's an engineer not trained with guns. I mean, I guess, but he's still, as far as I know, I haven't handled a gun myself, but as far as I know, realistically, if you've never handled a gun and you try to fire a submachine gun, you're very likely to just, like, if you're trying to hold it straight, the recoil is gonna go, because it has some kickback, and if you don't know how to compensate, sorry, not cooperate, compensate for that, yeah, the recoil is gonna be crazy. He does, yeah, he does perfectly fine for someone who doesn't have training with guns. Now, let's see. So, yeah, and there's a couple of featurettes on the DVD. One called Designing the Future, where they talk about the core concept, casting Ben Affleck, taking inspiration North by Northwest. Apparently, John Woo is a huge fan of Hitchcock, so he put in a bunch of Hitchcock homages in the film, and it's, I mean, okay, I would not have guessed that, but yeah, like, apparently the suit and the two birds there at the end, yeah. And I think the birds is a reference to the birds. Sorry, what I'm saying is that the birds in this movie is a reference to the birds in the movie The Birds, because both in the birds, there's the birds in this bear a resemblance to the birds in the birds. And they talk about working with Eckhart, the relationship between the romantic leads, train tunnel, accommodating John's filming style, and let's see, yeah, and then there's one called Tempting Fate, the stunts of Paycheck, where they talk about the, let's see, yeah, I don't really have anything specific to, it's good if you want to hear about it. I just don't really have anything to add to it. And let's see, yeah, so there's 10 minutes of deleted slash extended scenes, and apparently, yeah, I don't necessarily blame them for removing this. At the party, I guess this is right after Uma and Ben have their short conversation, and she walks over to talk to a friend. I certainly don't think it would happen before that. Uma is told that he lost a wife and kid, both in childbirth, and I guess that's supposed to explain why he doesn't mind selling his memories. And you know, I can see that, but that's really not necessary, and it's, yeah. And let's see. Yeah, and Aaron Eckhart talking to Uma, I think that was longer, because some of that scene is in the final movie. And and you know, Jimmy confronts Mike after chasing him down in a car. Looks like he's about to draw a gun, but it's just a cigar lighter. Yeah, so he smokes twice in the movie instead of only once. And yeah, there's the 2-minute alternate ending with the proposal, which I already talked about. I forget how much I mentioned, so I'll just very briefly. In the, excuse me, this is instead of the ending with the bird cage and the two birds. Basically, they're, you know, I forget if Shorty is there, but definitely Mike and Rachel are there, and Mike recognizes the kid who stole the engagement ring, and the kid recognizes him and darts off, and then Mike realizes that he just left a pawn shop, so he goes in there and, you know, gets the engagement ring from there. And it's, again, I don't think we see it, but it is very heavily implied that he is going to use the ring to propose to her. And you know, I'm not saying that's less Hollywood than him still getting $90 million just through a different means, but it is still, like, I don't know, it just feels like at the start of the movie, it's like he's selling his memories, and I mean, let's be honest, what he does is scummy. He takes somebody else's technology, reverse engineers it, and then sells, you know, I don't know exactly if, you know, is it technically legal to do that in real life, what he does? I'm not sure. But it is like, you know, these other people, it's not like they're tricking people. They're not selling something that they're not claiming their product can do something it can't. They made a product and they're selling it, and then he comes in and reverse engineers it, improves on it, and you know, yeah, it's pretty scummy behavior, and he seems like he's very greedy. He's selling memories basically, and selling the, you know, yeah, his ability to do this. And then for the movie to end with him still getting money, I just feel like that it feels like it's missing the point it was trying to make. It's like the movie doesn't understand itself, you know. Yeah. and that's just where it makes a lot more sense for him to be leaving with the engagement ring, because that, I mean, if he's going to marry her, he's not going to be selling his memories anymore. That's pretty definitive. I mean, at the end of the day, I think he does say that he's not going to do it anymore, but I mean, that's easy enough to say when you've gotten $90 million. You don't have to work if you've gotten $90 million, you know. But the idea is that, you know, if it's the engagement ring and a proposal, then he's going to change his life. You know, maybe the work he'll be doing won't be as monetarily rewarding, but he'll be able to be with her, and they love each other, and that reward is worth more to him than the money. You know, again, I'm not, that's still very Hollywood, but at least it's not, you know, you get to save the world and make $90 million. So I listened through the audiobook version of the short story. So I'm just briefly gonna skim my notes and see if there's much I want to comment on. See, yeah, I quite like, you know, the short story starts in media res. It starts right after he's had his memories erased, as he's waking up, having lost 2 years of his life. And, you know, in the movie it takes, you know, maybe 8 minutes before we're at that point, so it's not like they take long to get there either. But I do like that basically the first thing we find out about him is him waking up and having lost memories. It's almost like he didn't even exist before we started reading the short story. I quite like that. But that also doesn't play equally well in a movie. Not if it has opening credits like this does. You'd have to open it directly on that. And let's see. Yeah, you know, he thinks to himself that corporations are like a modern Notre Dame. The law cannot follow you. It, you know, cannot go against the company, even though regular people have no rights. The government can pick them up without any violation of the law. But corporations have to be, there have to be some violation of the law. And yeah, to be fair, you know, it would have been worth putting in, you know, the movie was made in the post 9/11 era, so it would have made, sorry, that makes it sound like that era has ended. Once the post, you know, during, never mind, after 9/11 and after the Patriot Act and all these things. Wait, was it? And anyway, certainly it makes a lot of sense to comment on that, but that wasn't the story they wanted to tell. I get that. And it doesn't bother me as much as it does with Minority Report. And I've made an entire video talking about that, so I'm not going to go much of that. In fact, I think it might be in one of the playlists, in the Philip K. Dick related playlist that will be in the description box. So let's see. And yeah, there is some, you know, Mike in the book also does encounter some guards with guns, and he's got a gun. Let's see. And yeah, that's, I've already talked about the rest of it. And that brings us to the final section, which is called Critic Sites, IMDb, and Wikipedia. I'm probably not going to be recording for too much longer. I need to change my position some, which I really can't do while recording. So anyway, There's a sense of treading water about this movie. So it's one of the, sorry, these are the Rotten Tomatoes critic review summaries. And yeah, Paycheck is John Woo light. That's very well put. The film discards serious discussion for standoffs and action scenes, trading the possibility of complex rewards for simple pleasures. And that is definitely true. It would have been interesting if it went more into the future stuff. Ultimately, it is only the short. I'm sorry, this is... I don't really agree with this, but it is kind of funny, and I don't... Yeah, let me just... If nature abhors a vacuum, how come Affleck hasn't been struck by lightning yet? That's kind of amusing, yeah. And what's the problem? Ben Affleck is perfectly believable as a guy who spends 2 hours confused and with a dazed look on his face. The first hurdle is the hardest. Accepting Ben Affleck in the role of possibly the most intelligent man on the planet. Just add an underwritten love interest, a scruffy yet lovable sidekick, stir violently, and overcook action scenes. Serves millions, but tastes bland. Yeah, it's true. She is definitely underwritten. It's hard to imagine Dick ever writing anything as empty as this. That's very true. Fails to satisfy either a Dickian head trip or a woozy thriller. I'm not sure I've heard of that way of... Dickian I've heard before, but woozy. But that's good. I like that. Total Recall without the ambiguity, and 50 First Dates without the jokes. Okay, so yeah, this is the Dean Jogaris script leans too much on Affleck going MacGyver at the exact right moment. That was the criticism of that part. I've forgotten the details. Just yeah, now rereading that after watching. See, I read that review, you know, sorry, that line of the review, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago. And last time I watched the movie was in 2011, but now rereading it after rewatching the movie, yeah, that's true. It leans too much on that. That's definitely true. Now, Sorry for the dead air. There's not a lot of these that I really have anything to say about. We're left with the painful reality that Paycheck might get Alfred Hitchcock, but it certainly doesn't know Philip K. Dick. Begins with a clever concept and eventually settles for being a little more than a "there's not a moment to spare" chase picture. That's very true. Paycheck fails to fully explore the interesting question it poses and regresses into a brainless actioner. And see, at the end of the day, I do think it would be interesting to get a straight adaptation of the short story. It just, maybe as like an episode of, I mean, I guess maybe not something like the Twilight Zone, because it's not quite, but something like it's an episode of an anthology show, not trying to make it into a big action thing, but like, yeah, and focusing on, yeah, focusing more on working in the objects without making, you know, yeah, I think that would. It's too many redundant action scenes. Yeah, that's kind of true. Now, let's see. Okay, so that brings me into the Rotten Tomatoes user reviews. And moving into the Metacritic critic reviews. Metacritic user reviews. Okay, yeah, so apparently, I don't think I could, yeah, anyway. Here's a, yeah, this is someone trying to explain. All the machine does is read his palm and scan his brain to figure out what's most likely to happen in his future. This, of course, can be changed, and his having the items changes the odds in his favor, creating a different most likely future. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, see, here yeah, so IMDb trivia. In the original story, Jennings sends to himself very different items, and there were only 7 of them. A code key, a ticket stub, a parcel receipt, a length of fine wire, half a poker chip broken across, a green strip of cloth, a bus token. And yeah, that's really like, how are those going to be worth as much as the actual money he would have gotten? Yeah, let's see, this is, yeah, the IMDb Goofs points out that Jimmy's party invitation to Michael includes P.S. the Red Sox loss, clearly indicating his awareness of Michael's favorite team. Jimmy later directs his decoy Rachel, at times feeding her verbatim lines via hidden transmission, to deceive Michael, yet when the ruse is almost complete, he lets it fall apart by neglecting to feed his decoy the answer to Michael's question, "What's my favorite baseball team?" Let's see. yeah, the checkpoint from, yeah, this is listed as a factual error. The checkpoint from where Michael's memory was supposed to be erased after finishing his first job is shown in a monitor as him walking with a box under his arm. However, he wouldn't have this image in his brain, but instead one from his own point of view. I think they basically tried to go with what they felt was more cinematic, but yeah, it doesn't really make sense. Now, let's see. So this is listed as an actual plot hole. During the opening sequence, Jennings purchases a 3D monitor, copies the text to create a new version that no longer needs the screen. The execs are amazed and rush it to product. But to do the reverse engineering, Jennings uses an interactive 3D hologram system much more advanced than the one he is designing. Yes, but one he's using might be extremely expensive to create. What he's made is for the what's it called? Like a regular, the average consumer. I really don't think this is a plot hole. I think they realized. I think the people making the movie realized that obviously the 3D, the interactive 3D hologram system that Mike uses is much more advanced than the one he designed. That doesn't mean that there's no worth in the, I mean, that's like saying that, why would people want home computers when they're not as advanced as like NASA space rockets? Just because someone can make it doesn't mean that it, you know, yeah, I think I've pretty much said what I want. Wait, are all these supposed to be? Oh, yes. Someone else pointed out, Jennings met Rachel at the party before going to work. The decoy would not have fooled him. Yeah, those were the two plot holes. Let's see. And let's see. Yeah, that was actually, yeah, just real quick. In the IMDb quotes section, I marked this. Oh my God, it's the future. The machine predicts a war. We go to war to avert it. It predicts a plague. We herd all the sick together, create a plague. Whatever future this predicts, we make happen. We give over control of our lives completely. I did this. Seeing the future will destroy us. Yeah, so the let's see, what was, yeah, I guess that's everything that I've noted down to make sure to say. Now let me think if there's anything where I really feel like before I turn off the camera, I want to make sure to say in the video. I guess that might be more or less it. So yeah, I definitely do think that the movie would benefit from, I mean, ultimately, I do think that it is an interesting point about the future, but it would have been really cool if it played with knowledge of the future more and made us think about, you know, yeah, at the end of the day, really, it is just a lot of action, and there's not that much, I'm not saying that it should have been Total Recall, but if you compare it to Total Recall, I realize they were not trying to make Total Recall, but that movie, in addition to the action, also has some really interesting, memorable concepts. And at the end of the day, I mean, this doesn't have that much that you really remember. There's a couple of interesting like technology things, but at the end they're just there to make to foreshadow cool things that'll happen later. Like the weather machine is so that there can be thunder and lightning when the flashes of thunder, not actual strikes of thunder, they're at the end of the lab, and you have the machine that can pick things up and drop things and such with Rachel's remote. That's there so that she can hand him uh, the submachine gun and to use with the bow staff and such. And yeah, at the end of the day, like, yeah, I'm just briefly gonna say Ben Affleck is not as compelling in the action scenes as I'd say Face Off and Mission Impossible 2 have much better John Woo action. I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily have guessed that you know I'm not surprised that ah crap, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name. Um, yeah, the guy who plays the lead in the Mission Impossible movies. I'm not surprised that he makes a better action hero than Ben Affleck. But if you had just told me, I'm not sure I would have necessarily guessed that Nicolas Cage and John Travolta make better action leads than Ben Affleck. But yeah, there you go. I can't really argue with that. And yeah, just the stuff about the if you were talking about like movies where someone can predict the future, affect the future in like ways like the way that this yeah, there are a lot of them that use that more in more interesting ways and such. At the end of the day, it's not that memorable, and it is just kind of. I'm not unhappy I watched it. I'm glad I own it. I'll almost definitely watch it again, but it is not the most memorable. It is, and I think the word bland. One of the critics used the word bland. That's a pretty good way to put it. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I did not remember very much of this movie, and there are movies I've only that I've also only watched once, and that I only watched once, and it was way further back that I remember much more of. You know, even ones that I didn't care that much about one way or the other. Like, whether you really love a movie or really hate a movie, you might have an easier time remembering it than if you don't care that much. And there are movies that I don't care that much about that I still remember more of than this. Was this like, I don't remember exactly, but was this maybe the movie that where it was like, after this, John Woo didn't really make more Hollywood. He like went back to China and made movies there again instead. I really don't blame him. It really, I mean, the man gave us Face Off once he came to America. So but yeah, some of these just didn't really work. I don't think that Face Off has like the when it was made, the movie, the concept in the movie was a bit of a sci-fi concept. Today you can do not that exact, like there are things about what they do in that movie that it still can't be. At the very very least, like if the blood types don't match, then but other than that, it's set in the present day, and it's just I don't think that his sci-fi movie stuff works quite as well as when it is just set in the I think that's also, I mean, the movie Mission Impossible 2 has a lot of problems. But yeah, I do think that the sci-fi stuff is among the, I think that if you watch that movie, if you only focus on how well done the action is, it's actually an enjoyable watch, if not necessarily that great of a movie. And yeah, I think that is absolutely everything I have to say. So yeah, I just really briefly, I appreciate that Rachel helps so much and that she's a, you know, she doesn't just jump at the first, when they first meet and he's basically like, let's just skip conversation and, she, yeah, she doesn't just jump at the chance to be with Ben Affleck. And I I really like that they made her so competent, and she's not just like this screaming woman being dragged along the action scenes. She helps tremendously. She's the one who she holds the, yes, she when they're on the motorcycle, yes, she does drop the envelope, but she's also the one that gets it back. He basically, he goes back to pick her up, but she's the one who gets the envelope. And, she's the one who gets rid of the cop by throwing the what's it called? Excuse me. Throwing the motorcycle helmet. And, yeah, just throughout the movie, it's clearly they didn't want for the movie to end up with the problems that a lot of action movies have had with the excuse me, there's an expectation for there to be a love interest, excuse me, but they didn't really want to, they wrote the woman as pretty helpless. And I realized that, a while, some years back, that was what the audience would have wanted, but yeah, by 2003, we were very much ready for a more independent, you know, I mean, this is basically, she solves a lot of the problems in the movie, and I guess that is pretty much it. I think Aaron Eckhart makes a perfectly decent sort of antagonist villain presence. He's, you know, it's and certainly I would say he puts in an effort. He's not, if it's not incredible, then it's probably more like script or direction issue than acting, I would say. And yeah, I think that absolutely covers it. So I hope you enjoy watching as